A strong host game needs a strong wing game. Add Popeye's wings to your game day spread, and the crew won't just be cheering, they'll be salivating. With 8 bold, crispy Louisiana flavors to satisfy everyone's taste buds, our wing game is strong enough to always get you the W. At $5.99 for a 6-piece, order bone-in or boneless for your next watch party. Someone just wrapped up the title of Most Valuable Host.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
At participating U.S. restaurants, price may vary, tax extra.
Welcome to the Season of Self-Love podcast. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and I am thrilled to have you join me on this transformative journey. You see, every day we dive into a powerful conversation about self-discovery, healing, and empowerment. This podcast is brought to you by Ask Nyomi and Elevate Me Self-Discovery, where we believe that loving yourself is the first step to living a fulfilling life. You can expect insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories. Plus, we'll occasionally welcome special guests who will share their unique perspectives on self-love and personal growth. So get comfy, grab your favorite beverage, and let's embark on this journey together. Because it's time to embrace the beautiful person that you are. So let's elevate our lives one episode at a time. Now let's get started. All right, my beautiful people, welcome back to the Season of Self-Love podcast, where you get your daily dose of inspiration. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and I am so excited to continue this month's series with New Beginnings. The series is all about embracing transformation and letting go of what no longer serves us and stepping into the lives we truly deserve. And today we are diving deep into the power of mindfulness transformation and the courage it takes to change your path. Joining us is an incredible guest, Bob Martin. Bob Martin has one of the most remarkable journeys from a high-powered criminal trial lawyer during the Miami's infamous cocaine cowboy era to becoming a meditation teacher, a mindfulness coordinator, and author. His story is a testament of power of stepping into your truth and finding peace amidst chaos. But before we meet Bob, let's take a quick break, all right? It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on the Season of Self-Love podcast, and we'll be right back. Hey, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks, and make sure you tune in every Thursday night to Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast, where we talk about everything from love, sex, relationship, cultural differences, and so much more. We're bridging the gap between them all, and we even talk about spiritual uplifting. You need to stop by. Me and Dr. Mike, as well as the BTG crew. We have some amazing guests that come through. You never know. Just make sure you tune in Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go to xnyomi.com and tell them Nyomi sent you. All right, welcome back to the Season of Self-Love podcast. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and joining us today is an incredible guest, Bob Martin. Bob Martin has had one of the most remarkable journeys from a high-powered criminal trial lawyer during the Miami infamous cocaine cowboy era to becoming a meditation teacher, mindfulness coordinator, and author. His story is a testament of power in stepping into your truth and finding peace amidst chaos. But before we dive into Bob's conversation with Bob, let's just ground ourselves for a moment, all right? If you could take a deep breath in and hold it for a moment. Now exhale. Now I want you to visualize yourself standing at the beginning of a new path. I want you to imagine the sunlight streaming down, warming your face and illuminating the road ahead. Let go of any tensions in your shoulders as you breathe in and feel a sense of possibilities. Now, as you exhale, I want you to release anything that is holding you back. This is your moment to embrace new beginnings. Now, take another deep breath in and exhale. And when you are ready, open your eyes to join me for this powerful conversation. All right, my beautiful people, if you are new here to the Season of Self-Love podcast, it's something we do every day, Monday through Friday, just to help center ourselves and just before we get into the topic at hand. All right, Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. Your story is truly fascinating. Let's start at the beginning. You spent years as a criminal trial lawyer during one of Miami's most turbulent eras. Can you tell us what that was like?
Yeah. It was, I guess in its own way, it was an exciting time. But it was certainly for Miami, it was certainly like being on a roller coaster. You know, the movies Scarface and the old TV show Miami Vice really captures the vibe that Miami really was during those years.
Beautiful. You know, Scarface is my favorite movie. One of my favorite movies.
It's a good movie, and those kinds of characters were all over the place. Tony Montana.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It sounded like such a high stake environment. Was there moments that made you realize that you needed to make a change?
Yeah, I was pulled into the craziness of that, and the fame and the glory, and I mean, I was making a lot of money, paid my house off by the time I was 32, and I had some clients that were pretty high connected up into the cartels and the mob and the like. So I would say that I started hanging out with them, and my professional life stayed good, but my personal life was hitting the skids, and I was seeing a therapist. And it was through my therapist that I actually was introduced to a 72nd generation Taoist master from the Shaolin Temple, who taught me something about finding mastery in life. And that was just transformational for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So you were talking. If you can tell us about from the being in the courtroom to the teaching mindfulness, what was your transition like after you met with your master Chun Nai, and now from that teachings, how was your transition now going for you?
Yeah, so everything kind of came together with a certain synchronicity, because I learned and studied under Master Ni, and what he taught me was how to move towards being masterful in life. And if I can just take a moment and define what I mean by that.
Yes, please do.
To live life so that it is more effortless, but yet more effective and more efficient. You're accomplishing things by doing less with less effort. That would be gaining a certain mastery in life, because if you look at the great people who seem to have a wonderful handle on life, they seem to move through life in a kind of slow and deliberate fashion. It doesn't seem rushed. It doesn't seem forced. And yet they accomplish great things.
Yeah.
So that's what Master Ni showed me that was accomplishable, because he had accomplished it. And then he showed me the practices where you begin to go down that path. So that's going on one level. On another level, I have these mob clients, and turns out that we had some very clear agreements about what I would and wouldn't do legally for them. And I would not do anything unethical, and I would not do anything illegal. And I was able to convince them that it was in their best interest to have a lawyer whose word was respected by the courts.
Mm-hmm.
If I could go into the court and say to the judge this, that, or the other thing, and I was accepted and I was trusted, that was good for them. So it all worked out well up until the point where Johnny's son got arrested and charged. And then there was no saying no to Johnny. He wanted me to do some stuff which I wasn't willing to do. And that put me in a real bind, because even if he got another lawyer, I would be obligated to report that lawyer knowing he was acting unethically.
Oh, wow.
So So this is now, that's the second thing that comes together. Then the third thing, I'm driving my ex-wife up to New York where her parents are, and we passed through North Carolina, and the azaleas are out and the dogwoods are blooming, and it was just beautiful. And I said, let's move here. So I went back and said to Johnny, I'm moving to North Carolina. And he put out his hand and shook my hand. And he said, that's fine, Bob. Sometimes a man just has to move on. And we never heard from them again, gratefully. So I moved to North Carolina. And then the last piece is, all of a sudden, I was given the opportunity to start my life over. I had a fresh and clean canvas. I went back. I started my career as a DA. I went back to a DA in a small rural town in North Carolina. The entire setup of my life was completely different.
Wow.
And I had a chance to remake and redefine who I was. So there wasn't any Taoists in North Carolina, I'll tell you that. But there are Buddhists.
Yeah.
And so I started going to Buddhist temples, and see, Buddhism is much more into meditation. Taoism is into Tai Chi and Kung Fu and moving meditations, but Buddhism is into mental meditation. So I started learning to meditate, and somewhere down the line, I discovered you could say, at some point in that process, I reconnected with my, let's call it my authentic self. Let's call it if you're spiritual, I would go so far as to say my connection to the divine, my soul. If you're not spiritual, I would say my subconscious or my authentic self. Whatever it is, whatever it is that you always have a feeling is there, because it's like when you say, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to try to communicate it, but it's like when we say, I had a thought, right?
Right.
There's a recognition in that sentence that I am not my thoughts. They're things that I have.
Yeah.
But we're not connected with the I of that sentence. Like, who is the I that's having the thought? Because it's so covered up by the conditioning of loves and the traumas that we've had and all of the pains and sufferings. It's so covered up that it isn't touchable, really. And through the process of meditation, I was able to reach through that conditioning and touch it again and reconnect to it. And when that happens, the only thing that you ever want to do is to share it with other people and see the breakthrough in their lives.
Yeah.
That's all you want to do after that.
Yeah. As you were talking, you had said something that kind of really kind of put a light in my eyes. I'm currently reading, and I've been reading it since last year. It's Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life by Proctor. And I've been on repeat with this book for a while. And it has truly helped to change the way that I feel, the way that I think, and my beliefs on a lot of things. And you said quite a few key things in which you were just speaking. But also, I want to ask you this, because you've been known to explore different connections between different religions. And with your interfacing, how do you approach shaping your teachings? And I believe that's what you were trying to even speak in before, when you were saying about that inner feeling that you feel. And I believe that's part of that paradigm, because, will we be taught, or will we don't know how to truly express how we feel. But once we really tap into who we are and how we are so comfortable in the being and the self of who we are, we want to share that with everyone else, because we want them to get there. I always say I'm on this spiritual high, and that's the very reason why I created the season of self-love, is to bring amazing guests like you that have been courageous to step into that, to find that connection with God, because we all have God within us. But if people are not willing to go to that level, to open up to find that God, or I don't want to say find, because God is always in us, but to connect and embrace that God within us, they will not be able to feel it. So I understand when you say that connection. So
Right,
for you,
right.
how can you approach in shaping and teaching that to others?
Yeah. Good. That's a great question. So you have to, you can't, you can't explain it to anybody. Yeah, they just look at you like you're weird. I mean, I'll share with you something that I very rarely share. I don't think I've ever shared it publicly like this. But part of the training that I went to become a meditation teacher was 2 years of very intense training, including several 3 per year week-long silent retreats. And in these silent retreats, there is a meditation that we do called a body scan, where you bring your attention to your toe and then all of your toes and then the arch of your foot. And you just bring your attention and scan your entire body. It takes about 45 minutes. And then one of the things that we do is we kind of we imagine breathing into our entire body and out through our skin, and then in through our skin, and then out through our mouth. It's just a visualization. And one day, when I was laying there, kind of like in the yoga position of Shavasana, and I was breathing into my body, all of a sudden I felt a great emptiness in my body, and it was filled by something that I can only explain and describe as an intelligence. But it wasn't me. And I no longer have an issue with faith, because you have an experience like that, that there is an intelligence that's outside of you. What it looks like, how it works, that's way above my pay grade. But I know that it's there. So how do you get somebody else to get
understand that? Oh
Yeah.
my God. You know
So,
what?
so in the teaching of meditation, if I can tell you a couple of the metaphors that I use to help people kind of wrap their head around it.
Okay.
So most of the time, remember I was just saying that I had a thought. Most of us are living in our thoughts. We have this default blah, 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 blah that's going on all the time. Some of it's very judgmental. Some of it's very self-judgmental. Other is just factual, like, did I leave the stove on, or have I fed my dogs, or, but it's just blah, blah, blah going on. And we're in it. And it's kind of like a fish doesn't know that it's in water, because that's the environment that it lives in. It's just our normal being way we are. Now, when we're driving along and we're in that default section, but a car gets a little too close to us, all of a sudden our attention takes over. We pay attention then. And it's funny how when we do that, all that blah, blah, blah just stops for a moment, because we're paying attention.
Yeah.
So in meditation, we look at, we get familiar with these two states, that default state and the state of paying attention. Not that one is any better than the other, they're just different. So when we're in our thoughts, if you can imagine, a river, and the flow of the river is like the stream of consciousness that our stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And there are sticks and leaves on the river. So those might be our different thoughts, and they come from up the river, and then they're here for a while, and then they go on down the river. And we are like riding on that stick. And if the river's calm right now, then our life is calm. But if the river is white water, then we're being jostled around by life and being thrown here and thrown there, and we're nervous and anxious. And then we see the waterfall that's coming, and now we're getting really scared and fearful about what's coming in the future. And if we're on the stick and we're living in our thoughts, life's a roller coaster, and there's nothing wrong with that because we're fully engaging in life. But in meditation, we learn that there's another piece of us. There's a piece of us that's up on the riverbank watching us float down the river on the stick. So from the perspective of being on the stick, life is something to engage in, and you feel joy, and you feel happiness, and you feel grief, and you feel fear, and you feel safety, and you feel love, and all of those things. And Lord knows we certainly want to feel an engaged life. But it is a little bit roller coastery. And so from this other place, sitting up on the bank and watching, it's very calm and stable. In that little exercise that I gave you before, where I say, okay, so now you notice that you're wandering. Well, when you're wandering, you're on the leaf.
Right.
But when you notice that you wandered, you're up on the bank. And doing this little exercise, you get more and more familiar with the feeling of being on the leaf and the feeling of being on the bank. And you get to know and recognize and understand what being on the bank feels like.
Yeah.
And from the bank, you can start to reconnect. So you have to learn how to sit up on the bank and watch yourself on the leaf. And it's just a practice. It's just, it's just doing it over and over and repeating it for maybe 10 minutes a day for a couple of weeks. And then when with my students, they always write a log every day, and I get their log every single day, and I respond and give them feedback every single day. And inside of 2 weeks, I'll tell them about the bank, and I'll tell them about the leaf, and I'll tell them about all this, and they go, yeah, okay, Then they get it. Then all of a sudden, they get what being up on the bank is like, and it's like their whole life breaks open. And when that happens, my heart just soars. I just love it. I get my life out of it. It's the most wonderful thing, and I they'll send me and they'll say something, and I just say, thank you for letting me do what I love doing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Even when you talk about on that bank,
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about on that bank, and you talk about with meditation, I remember sharing with the listeners, talking about when I do my visualization. Excuse me, I get so tongue tied, and sometimes I get so lost in it when I'm doing it, and I don't want to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Times, I truly don't. And like I have a room in my home that this is my meditation room. I call it my golden rose room. This is where I go in peace. Mm-hmm. Now myself, me and my husband, when we, or even my daughter, when we want to talk, have a nice conversation, we will go in there because that's a room of peace. Like literally, that's all that it is. So when we go in there, yes, it's a sacred place that we have. And just the energy around it just makes it to where even before you begin to speak, it's like a calming, the moment. My husband said he'll be like, some bills have to be paid. And soon as he walk in and he sit down and he said, oh my God, baby, this is just so peaceful. And I said, okay, so what do you want to talk about? He was like, baby, I don't even know. I don't remember. Let's talk about something else. And he gets to talking about something else. I totally forget what it is that he's talking about. And it's like, and what I'm saying with the bank is because it's like you're building the energy in that space around. So the time that I'm doing a meditation and doing a visualization is building the energy in those spaces, when you're doing them. So even when I go in there at times and you're talking about watching yourself, doing these things, at times I watch myself in real time. I see myself and I watch myself. I remember talking to a friend of mine and I say, at times I'm in real time and I can see myself in three versions of myself. I can see the old version, my new version, and my present self. And it's like it's a spiritual high that I don't, it just, it put tears in my eyes because it's an amazing experience. Like you had said about, when you were doing the scanning of your body, and it's like someone is, it drops out and you feel like something that comes into you, and it's like something just so powerful and just like, what is that? I know it's not me. When you said it, I felt it because I felt that. I know exactly what that is. And it's like, okay, now how do I get everybody else to get this feeling?
But the Dalai Lama was once asked a question about how hard is change, and his answer was, "Oh, change, it's not hard at all. It's very easy. It happens in just a moment. There's no effort at all in it. One moment you're this, and the next moment you're that. There's nothing to it." He said, but preparation for change, this can take years. And it is, I mean, when that feeling came into you, it didn't come into you because all of a sudden you thought, oh gee, I would like to have a great intelligence enter my body. It was years and years of trauma and dealing and working and resolving and and
Yes.
and 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 uh, uh, whittling away, at all of the sadness that, life gives anybody,
Yeah.
and the conditioning. And then all of a sudden, it happened in a moment. And when it happened, there was no effort. It just happened
Just
in a
happened.
second. But preparing for it,
That's it.
that's it. And all that is about living life intentionally.
Yes.
That's the preparation. In
Yes.
You could do it by jogging. I mean, if you go out and you jog and you're alone with yourself, if it's crossword puzzles that you like, but whatever it is, whatever brings you joy, to intentionally say to yourself that I am a human being. I have a seat at the table of humanity and I deserve joy. I
Yeah.
deserve happiness in my life, and I am going to go out and find those things that will give that to me. Of course, the the trap in that is that the world tells you, you know, riches will make you happy and power will make you happy and this will make you happy, and they're all false messages.
Yeah.
So you have to stop and think, what is it truly that will give me happiness?
Yeah. When you say that, it's like when my life has been so transformative through my whole life, and this is probably the most fulfilling and happiest that I've ever been.
Mm,
Um,
sweet.
and I don't have a lot of money. It's just knowing. I say this: I am probably the most wealthiest that I've ever been.
I
I'm
understand.
so wealthy in abundance, and it's just like, when I say it's like, I feel so just full, full. And this is my happy. This is my peace. It's funny when I have conversations with people, with just regular everyday people, those conversations are so different now. I don't have the same language or the same tone when I speak, and they look at me kind of differently, like, huh? And even people that used to speak to me before, like family members or even old friends, and like, we can't have those same conversations because I'm no longer thinking of those things anymore, whether they're negative, messy. It's just, I'm not there
Mhm.
anymore. And it's like at times I want you to come over here and think over here, because a lot of the things that you all are thinking about is irrelevant to life, period. That's what I think is so irrelevant. It's like we make things so much harder than what it really is.
It's, although, the people around us, when we change, the people around us so often are more comfortable with the person that they knew.
Yeah.
And we have to develop a certain bravery in resisting the forces that seem to want to bring us back to who we were.
Yeah.
It's like stepping out onto a new platform, and it's a little shaky at first.
Yeah.
Until it stabilizes, and the kind of like, yeah, I get it. I get what you say. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I thank you. I thank you for coming on this platform. And I thank you for sharing, your story and everything that you have to give in your wisdom. But before we go, can you tell my listeners where can they find more about you and your work in your upcoming book?
Well, I've written a little ebook. If you're more interested in meditation, it's called "Is Meditation for Me? What it is, what it's not, how to do it, and how to get started." Little 40-page quick read. It's freely downloadable. There's no obligation. I guess I wrote it because everybody always asks me those questions, and so I said, well, let me just write it. And so you can go to my website, and my website is awiseandhappylife.com. awiseandhappylife.com, all one word. And there's a little button there. It says free ebook download. You just press that, and you can download that book. And there's more about me, and there's some resources there. And I've written 2 books that have been published, and you can find out about the books there. And I write some poetry, and you can read my poetry and find out all about it. And if you want to get in touch with me, there's a contact button, and you can send me an email, and I will get back in touch with your listener. I'll send back an email, and maybe we could have a chat.
Beautiful, beautiful. Again, thank you, Bob. And to our listeners, I hope today's episode will inspire you to reflect on your own new beginnings. But until then, next time, take care of yourselves and embrace the new beginnings. All right? Have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery and empowerment here at the Season of Self-Love podcast. Remember, embracing self-love is a continuous journey, and we're so glad to have you with us. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. And don't forget to join our community on Facebook at Season of Self-Love. Connect with like-minded individuals who are also on their self-love journey. Now, if you have any questions or topics that you'd like for us to explore, we love to hear from you. Email us at seasonofselflove@gmail.com and let your voice be heard. So until next time, take a moment for yourself today, and remember, you are worthy of love, joy, and all the beautiful things that life has to offer.